Like it was, I think our second date, she pulled out a pack of Orbit gum, and I was like, "Oh no, no,
What
no, no!
is
Put
that?
that
How dare
away."
you?
Yeah, we're gonna go get you loaded up with product, and that's when I found out she'd struggled with cavities her entire life and had no idea
Oh,
why, because the dentist had just told her, I don't know, maybe do a better job brushing and flossing.
ugh.
What's up, dental peeps? It's your girl Irene here with Tooth or Dare podcast. Hold on to your suction, it's about to get slippery.
This episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast is brought to you by our friends at Philips Sonicare. Thank you for helping dental professionals elevate oral care with your partnership and dedication. Philips Sonicare offers comprehensive oral care solutions catering to the entirety of our patients' needs. To achieve a healthier oral environment for your patients and provide them with a more radiant smile, Philips Sonicare provides an array of products designed to optimize their oral hygiene regimen. These offerings are meticulously crafted to ensure optimum efficiency, allowing clinicians to tailor their brushing experiences accordingly to their specific patient needs and requirements, whether it be teeth whitening, enhanced plaque removal, or overall gum health. Sonicare electric toothbrushes harness an impressive technology boasting 62,000 brush head movements per minute. This innovative approach gently pulses water between the teeth, effectively dislodging plaque and facilitating its removal. Backed by over a century of healthcare expertise, Philips Sonicare instills confidence in users, and it's consistently helping us clinicians get the results we desire. For more information about Philips Sonicare products, please visit the link in the caption below. Welcome back to another episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast, peeps, with your peep Irene. Welcome back. I'm very excited to be joined by a dynamic duo, the founders of Epic Dental. How are you today? Dawn and Monica, right?
Donald and Monica. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing great. We're really excited to be on the podcast today.
I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better and hear about your journey, how you got to developing your own brand of xylitol-focused products and kind of where that led you to. So can we start from the beginning? Like where
Yeah,
individually,
for sure.
I guess you weren't born married. So where did you both
Yeah, we weren't
individually?
born married. I actually brought my
Yeah.
wife into the business about eight years ago. So I started the business 21 years ago. I had not met my wife then at all. I
Go
didn't know.
go even before that. So college, where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
Went to Hillsborough High School. Had a lot of fun in those years. Came to Provo, Utah to attend BYU. And while I was at Brigham Young, I decided I wanted to be a consultant. So I went into strategy consulting after I graduated. A couple of years of that, I was like, hey, I'm living in San Francisco. Life's great, but my social life's not what I wanted to be. Utah is where I could find more of the girls I wanted to be around. And so I came back and I was like, I'm going to meet my wife straight away. And 10 years later,
Wait, hold on. You're going so fast. He's like through all of this life history. What is a strategy consultant? What did you study in school? A lot
for
of
sure.
the people that ask questions on the podcast want to know about people's journeys. And it's this like philosophy where like we want to get to the end. We want to get to like the solution for the problem, but we want to know about the people that figured out this solution and how they got to where they are. So take me back. Like don't jump over the
Okay. I
important
studied
details.
advertising. That's what I studied when I was at the university. It's because I thought funny commercials were just fantastic. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to make funny commercials. But then you get into advertising, you realize there's no money at the low end of that. Like when you come in, you might as well become a TV reporter. You know how TV reporters, you're like, oh, they're on the news all the time. They make loads of money. And no, they put you out in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, and you make a pittance. Like hourly wages are probably less than what it's required to pay on the federal minimum wage, you know? That's kind of what they do with advertising when you start out. And I was like, that's a bad business to get in. My head works a lot better than that. I had taken some finance courses. I was in love with business generally. It wasn't just advertising. And I saw an opportunity to go into strategy consulting. Strategy consulting is helping big companies answer difficult questions. When you start out in the business, you work obnoxious hours and you're paid really well. Like my first job in strategy consulting, I was already making six figures, and this was in 2000. So, I mean, it gives you, that's 24 years ago. So it gives you a sense like, oh, you can really open up and do something meaningful for yourself, but they're going to work you hard. So that's where I started. I cut my teeth primarily at Conoco of all places. Oil and gas is well, that was the client that I was working on. I
Cool.
started out first helping them look at a software to say, does it make financial sense to sell this software as a SaaS software to other oil companies?
Hmm.
And my company was capable of building out that software, but they just wanted somebody to say, does it make financial sense? Long story short, no, it made no financial sense. I ran all the numbers, built a really complex model. Like you get Excel to push a computer so hard back in those days that like it freezes up the computer for an hour to run the different computations and scenarios that you built into it. So that's the kind of
Wow.
work that I did to start out with.
That's
Uh,
cool.
it was fun. It was fun.
It's an interesting world outside of dental. I interview a lot of people that do or have done dental adjacent things in like their 1.0 or 2.0 versions. And it really builds these interesting skills that adapt you to take some more niche information and niche strategies and then implement them into what we do now. And I think in dentistry, we're so hyper focused on like the textbook context of the things that we're creating, but we forget that a sliver of something that you did before, like this intricate spreadsheet work, renders you much more capable in the world that you're in now. So it's like, I think it's really cool to kind of look at people's strategic history, I guess, or career history in building the version that you are now. And perhaps that's why your business is successful because you failed at so many other different things. You adapt them different to where you are now.
Yeah, you have to learn so many skills. So that's where I started building the skills, and I loved it. I loved it, but my social life suffered. I was living in San Francisco, and I wanted to date somebody that shared my values and belief system, and it was hard to find those people around me. So I moved
Mm,
back to Utah in the hopes of accomplishing that. And while I was here,
very
I
emotionally intelligent of you.
I don't know that I was emotionally intelligent at all. In fact,
To be
if we
like, I'm
really
going to
dive
move
into
away
my
to meet the
problems in
person that
life,
I want to meet. That seems like a pretty emotionally intelligent thing.
I guess okay. I'll take credit. That was emotionally
I,
intelligent.
I think it was mostly cultural because for
Mm,
us and the culture that we come from, finding someone with a similar background for marriage is a big part of that. And so I think really for him, it was mostly a cultural decision.
Yeah.
oh,
So
okay.
anyway, I came back and I had helped a friend launch a company with nasal spray with xylitol. I'd written a business plan for him because he's like, I don't really know what to do here. What would make sense? Can you help me? And he's like, I need help. This has taken off, this nasal spray business. And I was like, I don't think we're going to get along well. I had planned to come back and get my MBA at Brigham Young. So I'd already been accepted into their MBA program. But I sat in on a couple of classes and I was like, I'm going to learn nothing here. Like, I
He was
can't.
so bored.
I was like, this is all stuff I've already really covered in the past couple of years, just in my job, on the job learning. And I said, I need to do something else. So I went to work with him. We didn't last maybe 6 months together. But while I
Uh-huh.
was there, I really dove into xylitol because that's what he was selling, a xylitol nasal spray. And he's like, I think we should be in oral care. And I was like, you probably should. Let's look at all the research. And I saw it and I was like, nobody has uh, high content xylitol gum combined with the other products that you would use for dental care normally to optimize the dosage. I looked at all the studies that have been done on xylitol, and there were some that said xylitol is really great, and others that said it doesn't do much. It was a dose response thing. I just created a scatter plot and put it on a chart, and I was like, oh, if you get a high enough dose, guess what? You get real results. And subsequent research has come out to support that that was the idea. But when I put that on the scatter plot, I was like, we need to be at the 6 grams a day. If we get 6 grams a day, we're going to see meaningful results. What's the easiest way to help people get their 6 grams a day? And that's where I built the system to really say, hey, if you struggle with cavities, you likely have a bacterial infection. Let's address that. And let's use xylitol to address it. Let's help you get an optimal dosage amount. And that's where I really launched the company. So I built that concept for him. He and I were not going to get along. So I left. He launched
Huh.
that under a competing brand. So some of you have probably seen that other
Mhm.
brand out there that I created at one point. And then I ran it and did this on my own.
Wait, so what's the connection between xylitol and nasal sprays for chronic sinusitis or?
So upper respiratory infections generally, it was originally observed that kids who chewed xylitol gum had fewer incidences of acute otitis media or inner ear infections.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this person I was working with, his father was a DO and he had a lot of kids in his practice. And he's like, I'd love to put this in a saline solution and have them squirt it up their nose. So maybe we can reduce their ear infections. And it showed promise, right? They didn't do any clinical studies back then when we started, but he's like, I think we could launch the product anyway. And he ran with it.
How long ago was that?
So that was probably around 24 years ago.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Quite a while ago.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then what? So how did you meet Monica? Where does Monica?
Yeah,
so
where's
now
Monica
we're going
come
to
in?
pause.
Years later.
And Monica's going to start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What's your history?
Yeah. So let me tell you where I met Monica. A friend set us up. It was a blind date. Yep.
Okay.
It was with his grandparents. I'd known them for years. We had, this was back when Facebook was more popular, but we had like hundreds of Facebook friends in common. And we were like, how did we never meet before? It was crazy. And I just feel like things just came together at the right time for each of us. So,
but like it was, I think our second date, she pulled out a pack of Orbit gum, and I was like, "Oh no,
What is that?
How dare you?
Yeah, we're gonna go get you loaded up with product." And that's when I found out she'd struggled with cavities her entire life and had no idea why, because the dentist had just told her, I don't know, maybe do a better job brushing and flossing.
Ugh.
And that was a really incomplete solution for her, right? And it is often the case that dentists don't invest the time, probably because they don't have the time. They don't get compensated for the time to share. But even back then, I think xylitol was novel enough to people that they didn't know that, I could talk about a different approach for people that have struggled with it. So I brought her to the warehouse it was, I think, our second date.
Yeah.
I was like, here you go. Let me load you up with product. I never, ever, ever want to see you with Orbit gum again, as long as we're on a date together.
So I hid my Orbit stash in my house and was like, okay, if we break up, then I'll use it. And if we stay together, I'll throw it away.
Anyway.
So what's your history, Monica? Where did you start career-wise?
Yeah,
Schooling-wise?
so mine's kind of an interesting twist and turn, to get to where I'm at. But I started with wanting to go to medical school. Like that was my goal. I loved everything about medicine. I wanted to do general surgery. And so I was like basically up to the point where I was, going to start prepping for the MCATs. And by that point, we had just newly gotten married. We were trying to kind of figure out like, what does life look like together? We knew we wanted to have a family. And medicine is just so demanding, not just, the years when you're in school and training, but even after that. And I was really concerned about like, how do I juggle in the kind of life we want to live and the kind of parents we want to be with the demands of that career, because it just felt so inflexible. And I watched a lot of people do it and they did their best, but I saw just places where I'm like, that's not quite the kind of parent that I want to be. I want to be more available. And I just didn't know how to reconcile the two. So I struggled for years to try and kind of figure out, how can I make this possible? And I just had a point where I was like, I think having the kind of family that I want to have, especially for me coming from a traumatic childhood and a not ideal family, having the kind of family and home that I wanted for my kids trumped career, even though it was very, very difficult to let go of. I really wrestled with it. So I kind of let that go and said, okay, I'm really capable. Let me find something else that's going to work. And so I was considering going to PA school or something else kind of in the medical field. Nothing felt quite right. And then I had kind of an opportunity to come in to a business. It was a startup business that had a consumer product, and they needed someone to help just kind of bring order and structure and have things run better, because the founder of that business was just kind of a chaotic disaster, which you see a lot of the time with founders. So I came in and did kind of a 6-month experiment with that, and really found that I had a natural gift for running businesses. And I had no idea that that was there, because I grew up in a family that was in the medical field and then other family members that were in law. And that was kind of all I knew. I had no exposure to business and I had no idea what that even was. So from that little experiment, I was like, wow, I kind of really like this a lot. And just kind of stayed in the back of my mind. I tried the stay-at-home mom thing after our oldest was born. I did that for maybe like a year and a half, 2 years. It was not really for me. I love being a mom. I love my kids, but I really, really struggled just being home full time, and just felt like I was not using my full potential. It felt like life didn't look like the way I wanted it to. And I was like, I know there is a way to combine motherhood with a career that I'm really proud of. I know there's a way to do it. It just is going to have to look very untraditional to have the kind of hybrid situation that I want. So that just stayed in the back of my mind while I was at home. And then Donald read a book called Traction. And that's all about the idea that when you have these personalities that are like that founder, you think Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, those kind of people that can create incredible products and found businesses. They have amazing gifts, but they have huge weaknesses and gaps. And so, really, what they need is to partner with someone that can help kind of channel their magic into a place that's really productive. Because they'll take, a million ideas 60% of the way, and then they get dropped for the next shiny thing. And that was really very true for Donald as a founder. And he just was beating his head against the wall saying, how can I grow this business faster? But he knew he had these limitations. And so he read this book. It really kind of opened up his eyes. And he said, this book describes who I need help from, and that is you. Like, if there's anyone that fits this description, that's you. And so I read the book, and it was really funny because I'm like, hey, yeah, these are all the things I've been telling you from the sidelines that you should be doing in your business for years. And he didn't want to listen to me, because I wasn't part of the business. And he just thought, oh, you don't really know because you don't know all the details of what's happening. But that instinct was spot on. And so when he read that book, it kind of opened up his mind. And he was like, I need you to come work with me. What do you think? And so we talked a lot about it and kind of figured out how we were going to juggle family and work, and started on this journey that was way more complicated than we ever expected. But it's been the best thing that I think I've ever done.
That's really cool. What have you learned from working together as a married couple? Like the church and state part becomes quite difficult at times. How do you separate the work life from the home life and the family life?
Mhm.
Any tips or tricks that you can share?
Yeah, for me, I really like things to be quite compartmentalized because then I can have kind of a mental break from work when I'm at home and a mental break from home when I'm at work. And so for me, I really like a lot of separation and to have it be very, divided up. Donald could think about business 24/7. Like, he'll wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about the business. He wants to talk about it right before we go to bed. I can't do that. So it took us a
It's the
while to figure
CEO
out we had a
curse.
big difference. So
Yeah.
yeah, we do have kind of some ground rules that we live by that I don't think they're ideal for Donald, but he does that to kind of support what I need to kind of mentally rest and come in fresh the next day. So when we're at home, we kind of hit a point where we're like, okay, once it's, maybe like 5 or 6 o'clock, we try and wind down the work talk because otherwise it'll just go all night long. And so we try and wind down the work talk and then pause and say, okay, we're just going to be in family mode. And the rule that I've got is if you have some really good work news, like, hey, we had a great sales day today on Amazon, or, we heard back about something that we're working on, something that's really positive, that's going to give me some positive energy. I'm like, you can share that any time of the day or night, and I'll listen to that. But if it's anything about like problems we have to solve or issues or things that are not running well, like, I can't do that past like 6 or 7 p.m. because otherwise I'm going to stress and I'm not going to be able to sleep. So he's been really respectful of kind of some boundaries there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really helps. I think one of the things that's really relevant is to understand what your lane is and stay in it. Look at what your weaknesses are, what her strengths are, what my strengths are, what her weaknesses
Mhm.
are, and build roles and responsibilities that match that. If you try and put two people in the same seat to drive the car, it doesn't work very well, right? So you each have to be driving your car down your lane on the things that really have an impact. And I think that that's worked super well for us
Yeah.
too. I think in general, just recognizing like when you work with somebody, there's going to be natural tension between certain types of roles, especially when we represent different parts of the business, because somebody might be advocating for, I need the money, and somebody else might be advocating for, but we need X result that the
Mhm.
money has to buy for us. An example of just natural tension you see in any business is like if a customer wants a refund, there's somebody that should be advocating for the customer saying this customer had this problem, they deserve this refund, and there's somebody that should be advocating for the business saying yeah, but we need the money for X, Y, and Z. And you want to resolve those in the way that makes the most sense for the long term. So you want
Mhm.
two people who are willing to advocate opposite sides so you can arrive at a good result. And I think that that creates tension, but it's really useful.
Mhm.
And we're not talking about customer refunds, but that's an easy example,
Right.
like the things that we
Yeah.
are like maybe taking opposite sides on, and then we don't make a move until we both agree on the course of
Mhm.
action.
Yeah.
How about your kids? Are they at all involved in the family business? How old are
I mean,
they?
they love it. They want to be. And so, they'll ask questions at the dinner table. about things like, we'll kind of talk about our day. And do you remember what it was that you said that you did? And Bennett was like, what does that word mean?
I don't
I
remember. It was like
forget.
2 days ago. I was telling the kids what I did.
But they're always asking about it, and they love to come to the office and try and help. And so when they're small, they'll like shred papers or sometimes like we've got these little Spiffy's wipes for babies. They'll help like count out the number of wipes that need to go in there and fill the containers. And so we find little ways for them to help because we just feel like there is something magical about the idea of like a family business because kids can learn so many skills from helping and participating in the work and hearing those conversations that then if they ever want to be entrepreneurs themselves, like they have a huge leg up. And I think so many people focus on the education side of that, of like, I need a degree in business or I need, whatever. And none of that has been required from my point of view. Like I haven't needed that when we hire people. I don't care what their degree is. I'm looking for what is your brain built to do? And can you build skills and build knowledge along the way that's going to help you? And so I think our kids are very entrepreneurial minded, maybe just because that's what they've seen, but they love to be involved.
They also love to educate people about product, which is awesome because education is a big part of what we do in our business. We're trying to share messaging. So there's one day we had an open house where we're like, we're going to get rid of all this product that is near its shelf life date, stuff that maybe we hadn't sold, whatever. And we were just giving away for free. And we invited friends and family to come by and pick out what they wanted. And what was he, 9 at the time, maybe 8?
Yeah, he was 8.
He was my 8-year-old son. He decided he was going to get out and like, I want to help people pick out their box. And he's like telling the product story all the way along.
Aww.
And he was literally diving into the science of like, this is how xylitol works to, get rid of the strep mutans bacteria. And here's how acid comes into the cavity cycle. He's like walking them through all of it. And there were people in our office park from neighboring buildings that we had invited to come by. And there was a construction crew that was working on something that came in to get some free gum. And they see this child explaining how cavities are formed. And like, they're so confused. They don't know what's happening. It was so funny.
It was entertaining.
So
and then when we shoot content, so one of the things we've done to grow our business is create organic social content. And they love to be involved. Like if the video guys are here at the house, they're like, I want to turn on the camera and I want to talk about the product and I want to talk about what I've seen. And it's fun.
And we don't coach them through any of it. They'll just kind of sit there and they'll say whatever they want to say. And it's amazing how much they've absorbed.
That's really cool. Well, I think this is a great spot to pause for part 2, where we talk about the dental stuff. So for those of you that are watching, stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to talk about Epic Dental, the line of products from gum to xylitol to rinses to toothpastes. And we'll stay tuned for part 2 with Monica and Donald Bailey.